Jodie, nice to talk to you again. Thanks for doing the show today.
Oh, thank you for having me.
So, really, the marijuana legalization is not that far from where we are sitting here today. The government seems to think that they're right on track for being prepared for this. Do you agree with their assessment?
I don't think they're prepared because they're coming at it from a bizarre position of trying to introduce new criminalization. So at these events that I go to where the Ontario Attorney General or Bill Blair speaks, they go on and on about how we need to crack down and smash the competition and continue enforcing the law and make everybody scared about kids and teens and driving and all of this fear-mongering that I thought we were over and done with when we agreed we should stop with the reefer madness and actually just legalize it.
Yeah, that would certainly be of some level of assistance. There's a lot of ways that we can make this far less complicated than it seems to be currently. And I get they want to look at safety. They want to look at all those things. I understand that. But right now, I feel as though we might be setting ourselves up for some of the benefits that we were hoping to achieve with marijuana legalization, i.e., we get it out of the black market, out of the hands of organized crime. We may not be reaping those benefits.
Well, they're not going to get rid of the black market. And every government in the provinces across Canada, including the federal government, admit that. Like, we need to reframe our minds here. It's not like the marijuana industry has a little subsection of demon trolls who are trying to get your kids addicted to pot,
right,
and they're the gangster crew. I mean, the criminal market is the existing market. It's millions of Canadians who buy cannabis and traffic it, even when they pass a joint. That's trafficking. So when the government goes on and on about we need to eliminate the black market, well, the government creates the black market. You cannot get rid of a criminal market if you continue to criminalize it. So everyone out there is thinking that the government's hunting down these shadowy black market figures. That's not the fact. That's not the truth. It's mostly 95% law-abiding citizens who are involved in growing cannabis. That's the Justice Department's own statistics. And so you have all of these people who are consuming cannabis, selling it, growing it, and they're currently seen as criminals in the eyes of the law. But the government refuses to lift that criminalization, and instead they're trying to reinvent a massive industry that already exists. That's worth billions. They're trying to reinvent a new model that nobody really wants or needs because we already have this industry. They can't reinvent it.
No, I agree that they certainly can't reinvent it. Now, when I say the criminal element of this, I get that technically people like yourself might be considered the criminal element, but I'm talking about marijuana sales used to fund organized crime or used to distribution networks that also distribute drugs that are far more damaging than marijuana is, and that's something that the police will bring up. But you're right when you say, and I know you're right when you say, the vast majority of it is not people that are in it for those particular reasons. The vast majority of it is people that just do want to run a business.
Right, and the small percentage of people who are unsavory or dangerous or violent, the actual gang members that are involved in cannabis, the number is actually very small. The government of Canada has admitted that most organized crime gangs don't get involved in marijuana because marijuana consumers don't deal with gangsters. They deal with their friends and their family and their buddies. But the criminalization of cannabis puts it in the same field as all these other illegal drugs. So when organized crime gangs are involved in cocaine or heroin or hard drugs, there might be a reason to be involved in the other illegal drugs. But if we stopped criminalizing cannabis, they wouldn't have a role in it. It wouldn't be a criminalized product that they deal in. So we need to stop talking about all these dangerous folks in the marijuana industry because there aren't really any. And those that are not good are only invited in by the government's own prohibition policy, which makes it very attractive and valuable for people like that to get into this business.
Yeah, and I certainly understand that frustration. So as we continue to talk about what's going to happen a few months from now, let's just say this goes ahead with what the government has planned, whereas they're the ones responsible for distribution at the provincial level, whatever it happens to be, and they're the ones responsible for growing it. What do you think is going to happen within the industry? Are there going to be people within the industry that you're in that are going to say, you know what, these are the government's rules, but I'm still going to play by my own? Do you think that's something that's still going to occur?
Oh, absolutely, because remember that legalization activists, we've wanted to be legal. Cannabis victims of prohibition, we want to be legal. We've been begging the government, campaigning and marching and, helping the Liberals get elected and everything. So we just don't want to be criminalized. But the governments at all levels, from city to provincial to federal, keep introducing tough new criminal penalties and punishments for people who don't meet the absurd requirements and elitist allowances for this. Remember that a lot of former police officers and premiers and politicians and big business guys are coming into this industry, usurping it, taking it over for themselves, and throwing young entrepreneurial women like myself in jail so that they can cash in on an industry that they got paid to fight against for so long. So many of us who are in this cannabis industry who have been begging and waiting for legalization so we can stop being called criminals, the government is saying, no, too bad for you. You're going to still be a criminal with even tougher penalties, 14 years in prison instead of 7 years. What kind of legalization is that? So, yeah, a lot of people in this community and culture and industry, we want to be legal, but if the government doesn't let us, they're the ones to blame. It's not like we're out there trying to be criminals, that we want to be bad guys. No, we're begging to be free from that criminalization, but the government keeps putting it upon us. So they're really creating the crime and forcing the continuation of law-abiding citizens who are involved in cannabis to be lawbreakers with respect to cannabis.
So, and you mentioned the Fantino situation. I find that to be absolutely ridiculous and complete and total hypocrisy. I want to be very clear about that. What do you think the right way to do this would be? And is there any chance of the government listening to you, or do you think that that particular horse is out of the barn?
Well, I start to feel like everything that I ask for, justice, equality, fairness, when I mention it, they do the exact opposite. So maybe I should shut up and they might do the right thing. I don't know. But it seems like all of our work and effort is going to have to continue, that we are facing this new model that the government is spending so much more money trying to stamp out an industry that really should be embraced and encouraged. We have a massive multi-billion-dollar cannabis industry, and we want to pay taxes. We want to help our communities grow, but the governments don't let us. So one of the issues we have right now is federally, the government controls all the production of marijuana, and they tell the provinces, you get to distribute it. But if the federal supply is so limited that the provinces don't have enough, they're being put in a very bad position of having to supply a product that doesn't actually exist. And let's remember that the licensed producers of medical marijuana today, the legal marijuana the government keeps endorsing, they enjoy that benefit from promotion of the government because their industry exists on the back of lawbreakers. And when you talk about their supply and the demand, they can't even supply the medical marijuana demand of patients who have to have their charter rights protected. That's why those companies exist, to meet the charter rights needs of patients as ordered by the courts. But those big companies, they're on the stock market. They're not giving enough medicine to their patients. They're looking at going for recreational markets. They really don't care about the people who need access, and they're looking to try and capture the entire legal market with the endorsement of the government and the enforcement of government gunmen stomping out their competition. It's a very ugly model. We should simply just stop criminalizing cannabis, remove it from the CDSA instead of creating a whole new Cannabis Act criminalization law. And we should let people treat it like coffee or even alcohol, which actually kills people. Cannabis doesn't. But let entrepreneurs create jobs and businesses. Let them grow hemp on their farms. Let them market to tourists with bud and breakfast. Let us embrace this industry and pay taxes and generate jobs and revenue. But the government doesn't want to let that happen. They're on a very strict restrict and limit access approach. So we know that it's going to be many more years of struggle for those who need access to cannabis and those who are trying to provide it.
Bud and breakfast. I like that. That's good marketing. So before we go, Jodie, I want to ask you, you know, this has obviously been more than a tough couple of months for you and for people that you are associated with. Is there any sort of light at the end of the tunnel here for your legal situation, knowing that this is still going to be a series of marijuana laws that you do not like? Knowing that this is going to be difficult, will it continue to be difficult in the months to come, do you think?
It's difficult every day because I'm out on bail and I'm not allowed to participate in the legal industry. So I'm being punished as a criminal and forced to remain a criminal. I face possible life in prison. That's the penalty for my supposed crime of helping operate dispensaries. So we're back in court on December 4th. I don't know how it's going to go exactly. And that's one of the very scary things. I don't know if it's going to get worse before it gets better. And I don't know if I will be used as an example, along with my husband, of how, quote unquote, lawbreakers are going to be dealt with. So with all of these provincial legislation acts being proposed, it sounds like tough new penalties and severe punishment for people like me. So I hope I don't end up in prison. I hope I don't get punished so severely, but I can guarantee that whatever punishment I get will be very crippling and disabling for me and will continue to hold me back as a young woman entrepreneur while these old big business boys come in and take over and cash in and make millions while I suffer alongside many other minority groups and young professionals who were just hoping and begging for a chance to be allowed to be legal.
It does seem certainly frustrating. Jodie, thank you so much for giving me a few minutes on this. Glad that we could talk, and hopefully we can chat about this again in the near future. Thank you.
Absolutely. Thanks, Kate.
All right, let's take a break here. That was my conversation with Jodie Emery, marijuana activist. Bud and breakfast, that was good. Good marketing. More of The Craig Nino Show. Your call's coming up. This is 980 CFPL.